From January 1, 2 days ago, 2026, Nigeria's new tax laws are scheduled to take effect, following a series of reforms signed into law by Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The government insists implementation will proceed as planned, arguing that the reforms are critical to boosting revenue, improving compliance, and stabilizing the economy. But the road to January has been anything but smooth. The reforms have split Abuja. They've triggered resistance in the National Assembly, sparked legal threats, and raised concerns from businesses, from shipping lines, and also organized labor.
Now, while officials say low-income earners will pay zero personal income tax from 2026, critics question the legality of the laws, the timing of implementation, and the real impact on already stretched Nigerians. And so this morning, we ask the big questions. Are these tax reforms legally airtight? Who really bears the burden? And what happens if implementation is delayed or halted? So joining us this morning to unpack all of this we're joined first by public affairs analyst Zekeri Jr. He joins Idris Zekeri Jr. There we go. He joins us live here in the studio. Also joining us is the head of tax at KPMG Africa, Mr. Wale Ajayi. Gentlemen, good morning to you.
You're welcome. A little warning for Zekeri. The last time you were here, you almost beat up our next respondent. So we have to bring you to the studio live so we know how to hold you and keep you for law enforcement. So no fighting tonight.
No. Let's just get started and say that I'm very worried. You know what I mean? I'm concerned. As I'm like this, I'm going through a loss. Yes. The last thing I need is more to be going through me. And so I do have to come to you, Mr. Wale. You are the head of tax, right? And help me allay my fears, so to speak. How significant are these changes? What am I going to be expecting, in the next quarter in terms of my earnings and deductions of tax?
Okay, thank you so much for that question. Let me say that the changes that we've seen are significant, but then again, they are just consolidation of the provisions of the law that we've always known. There are just very few changes that have been made. I mean, the key change that affects you as an individual is that the tax ban has expanded, right, and the rates has expanded. And unfortunately, the personal allowance has been reduced. So you can only get a personal allowance of 500,000, what they call the rent relief allowance, which is insignificant. So what that means is that the top rate now has not gone to 25%. If you earn any income from 25 million and above, then your tax is going to go up significantly. Now, I think the issue is everybody understands that we need to embrace progressive taxation, right? In other words, if you earn high income, you pay more tax relative to somebody that earns low income. But at the end of the day, you need to strike a balance. You don't want to find yourself in a situation where you overtax the high-income earners and undertax the low-income tax earners.
Is that what's happening? Because critics have argued that's what's happening.
May happen eventually, except we do something to the personal income allowance.
But it's now it's in that process of being gazetted, isn't it? And the presidency have said there is no going back. We're not looking at it. It has already started.
I do understand why the government has said that we need to go ahead, right? Because so much time has been spent, so much effort has been spent trying to get this act into place, right? As far as I'm concerned, we should have actually investigated whether the allegations that were made were true. We had all the time in the world to do it. It's not rocket science. Just a matter of looking at the harmonized bill and looking at the one that was signed by the president and comparing. It shouldn't take one week to do that. But for some reason, we never did that. So those allegations remain allegations, right? So we have a law that has become effective. But the fact of the matter is that we'll continue to talk about it. I don't think we've seen the end of litigation.
True.
People will continue to talk about it because it has the act is on whether the law itself has currently been signed is valid, right? But what we have is that we have tax laws that have become effective and governments need to generate more income. I think it's very important for us to understand when you look at 2026, we have a deficit. Or we're going to have a deficit of about 24 trillion naira.
Wait, but the president said that. don't put it on my head.
Okay.
Because that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah, because the presidency is, and it's addressed to, or rather his message, his New Year message, he, is told on how much they've made, how they're able to close the gap in terms of deficit, how they're doing so much, and how they're attracting investors, and how, the projection that they're making in terms of our GDP is going to be a 4% jump. But now we're hearing a deficit. Why am I the one now being paid for it? Because if you're more tighter in terms of fiscal discipline and you stop making appointments and reduce your cabinet, I am sure there's more money. Plus, what happens to subsidy removal?
Mr. Ajayi, I'm sure you want to answer that, but I had a question that, following from something that you said, something about what has to happen to our personal income allowance, but I'm going to come back to that. Let me ask Zekeri here. Zekeri is raring to go. Zekeri, let's talk about the average man, the normal person, the person who is scared when they hear tax reform. Once they hear tax reform, they don't hear policy, they actually hear process. They hear people coming to ask them, where is this due, where is that due? And then they fear the racketeering that comes from all of that. And they've also said that this thing was passed too quickly. Labour is talking about perhaps maybe a strike here or there. Maybe we'll see this go into court. Should this happen, will this happen? Let me first of all ask you straight up. Do you think that this might be the course we're looking at in the next 1 month?
That's a very good question. I think the average Nigerian who is worried needs to be worried. You have legitimate grounds to be worried because you are going to see things you've never seen before. And like my Oga here rightly pointed out, the crux of this new tax policy is the expansion of the tax net. And when the tax net expands, like I said in my lifetime here, the fisherman's theory, when the fisherman, who is the federal government now, and the state government, gets a bigger net, which is the expansion of the tax net, and catches a lot more fishes, it is not the fishes that rejoice. It's only the fisherman that will rejoice. The man upstairs is the one who rejoices. There are some persons, especially the average, I speak for the average Nigerians. I'm not interested in speaking the company income tax, even as well as I have studied it. I don't like talking about it because the companies have big people that they pay. They have the best tax consultants. They have the smartest people who are running their business.
Yeah, who are able to
but for the common
find
man,
the loopholes.
You are your own tax consultant. And it may end up that the billionaire will pay a lot less in comparative terms than the common man on the street.
I mean, look at the write-off that happened for the NNPC. Was it NNPC by the president?
Yes, that of the 5 point something.
It was just written off. Yeah.
Now we go. Let's bring it down home. The keke driver, like we were discussing in reception, the keke driver earns on average maybe 10, 15, 20,000 a day, and if you multiply that by 365 days, it's 3,650,000 naira. The keke driver, you have never paid tax before, apart from the one that Agbero slap you to collect around.
Now they get receipts for those.
You will pay proper tax. You will sit down, they will do an assessment of what you've earned, and then you will pay taxes on it. Same with every other Nigeria. I just went there so that you can use that to measure your own self. And I saw your concerns when we stepped into the studio. Even how good you look this morning is a tax assessment.
But this is true.
It is. Thank you for the kind words.
If you look this good, you cannot pretend not to be taxable.
King, I'm a poser. I said this thing from earlier.
That is what we are now saying. Even your fake life. You go to club and you buy drinks that are more than your income, we will check when we see what you are.
Then that raises that question, Mr. Ajayi.
Yeah.
Running up to this week, we had plenty of communication. People were sending messages, from next year, this is what you have to do. Always put your explanations to your... Are these necessary? Mr. Taiwo Yedele has actually come out to say that they are not necessary, but people are not hearing. They're like, this is for groundnut money, not not a job. Is it necessary? While you're answering that, if you can also tell how our personal income, how it works into... You said we have to do something about that from your last submission.
Yeah.
Also work that into your
Okay,
answer.
so let me first address the issue you just raised now, especially with respect to all the conversations going around in social media.
Transaction explanations.
I mean, I saw one also, all sorts of jokes, and we need it in this festive period, just to keep us alive, to laugh. I saw one where somebody said, Tinubu don't tax me, this money belongs to Ajayi money, that kind of a thing. I think what we've seen is that there's been a lot of awareness about tax reforms, about the taxes, which is great for Nigeria. But coming with the awareness is also miscommunication, right? For some reason, even though this presidential committee has done great work in trying to create awareness about how the tax process works, but for some reason, there are some people out there that are just spreading rumors, okay? All those stories are not true. You only pay tax on your income. It's as simple as that. On the profit that you make, that is what you pay tax on. Now, going back to the personal income allowance that I spoke about, right? So the way it works is this. There are certain deductions that you are allowed to make from your income. Like if you make payments to your pension contribution, your national health insurance, your national housing fund, if you have a mortgage that you've used to develop your owner-occupied, or you pay insurance premium on your life or your spouse, you can deduct that. Now, you can deduct that before we talk about taxable income.
Good.
And once you've deducted that, now, prior to December 31st, we used to have what we call a personal allowance. So that is the allowance you get, for being a taxpayer. And that used to be 20%, of your income, plus 1% of your income, or 200%, whichever is higher. So you get about 21% of your income. So you pay tax only on about 79% of your income.
Okay.
Now, what has changed is that those deductions are still there. But when it comes to personal allowance, we've removed that. We brought in a concept of rent relief. And the maximum you can deduct is 500,000 naira. 500,000 naira per annum is nothing. Is nothing.
So when a small apartment is
actually 20% of your rent.
Of your rent, I take
not exceeding 500,000.
Let's even say 500,000 is the maximum.
So for 500,000 means you are paying 2.5 million rent.
So wait.
So
can I just complete?
So you take 500,000 naira, that is nothing, right? So that means your taxable base is gone up. That's one. The number two,
my taxable what now?
The taxable income on which you're going to pay tax on is gone up.
Okay.
Right? Because of that, of that reduction in your personal allowance. Second thing is that the tax band has gone up, right? The way they've done it is such a way because once they reach to pay more, right? So once you earn from the simulation that we've done, if you earn above 25 million, you're going to be paying significantly more than what you used to pay prior to 31st of December. In fact, some people that have started paying their lump sum for January are already experiencing that, because especially those people that work in the bank, because they're going to be paying tax at the top.
Why did you point at me when you said lump sum?
Well, you look like a banker. With your packaging, I can see that you probably don't earn less than 25 million. So I expect that your tax will go up. So that is the issue that we have. And I think I do subscribe to the fact that tax has to be progressive. If you earn income, you must pay tax accordingly. But you don't want to overtax the rich. Now, because
is this overtaxing?
Well, you can overtax, because then what they can then do is that they can then try to look for ways to manage and evade and avoid paying taxes. And you don't want to do that. Once you do that, then what you then desire, which is a revenue generation, will disappear.
I have to...
You've got to strike a delicate balance.
Right. I have to ask you about... do we have to go for a break? I do have to ask you something before I come to you. You can always contribute as well. And it's about, you said something that, the Awareness Committee have done their best in, educating Nigerians. But have they really? And here's where I'm coming from. Policy communication in Nigeria has overly been poor. Whenever there's a change in something, whether when we saw that with the new Naira, old Naira, and even far before that, there is always commotion that leads to death.
Yes.
And casualty in Nigeria. And we always use Abuja and Lagos as the center of Nigeria, or the parts of Nigeria, because we forget far-flung areas and far-to-reach areas and ungoverned areas, right? I'm looking at my Igbo brothers in the east who have to import. What happens to the consumers? I'm looking at my Alhajis in the north who sell gold, who have their cattle, and who also deal in textile. What happens to them? We're also looking at the people who are in the far-to-reach region who are agrarian communities. What happens to those areas as well? So let's talk about policy communication and what this means for those areas as we're talking about this, because they also deal in the big box, even though because they're also part of the engine that oils Nigeria.
You're right. I think, in fairness to the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Matters, when it comes to engagement, they did so much of engagements with all stakeholders. We must give it to them, to be honest. It did a lot of engagement. But I think there are just some people that are mischievous, right? That are turning, what the committee has said into something that is not correct. And that is what we have. Look at the fact that Nigerians are talking about tax today. It shows you that awareness has been created. I've never seen it in a long time when Nigerians are talking about taxes. This is the first time really that everybody is talking about taxes. So that's one thing. Now, but we need to deal with the miscommunication. And this is what this program is all about. People need to be enlightened on what is in the law and what is not in the law. That is the problem that we need to deal with. And by people listening to this program, a program like this, it will help them to understand better what the tax law is all about. And that is what we all need to do.
How would it affect consumers, final consumers? Let me start with you. How would it affect consumers?
Just to talk about policy communication, I think the best form of communication is action. That's why they say action speaks louder than words. If the government has shown by its action that taxes are actually meant for the benefit of the people, we will not have problem discussing communications here today. It will be a natural consequence that you know that this road is built with taxpayers' money, then you have to pay. But when you have governors especially, recklessly spending money, importing assorted people from elsewhere, living large, flying to the choice places, leaving a minister driving a Rolls Royce on the taxpayer's dime, a man who has never worked. You have high-ranking government officials paying school fees in dollars, like your entire earning for your life is not enough to pay the school fees you just paid for one child. Then how do you convince me? Now you are spending oil money, you are spending the money that customs generate from import. You now want to take my money and be living a champagne lifestyle, whereas I'm living on the Coca-Cola budget. It's not going to work. Those are some of the concerns we have. And then when I hear a lot about miscommunication, no one is miscommunicating or misinforming another. The point is simple. As a Nigerian, the underlying conversation is that you will now start paying tax.
Yeah.
If the government decides not to take it now, it does not stop the fact that there is now a policy in place to take it.
But
it will only be postponing the evil days.
Zekeri,
it
just
will
a second.
come.
They claim that for some income earners, they will actually pay less tax. I say that carefully because I'm not absolutely sure. I'm hoping that Mr. Ajayi here might also. Let's do the numbers.
Let's do the numbers.
Mr. Ajayi, with us?
Yeah, they say that if you earn 800,000 less, that is tax-free. 800,000 is pittance. They say they are not taxing poverty. You are actually taxing poverty. I'll explain. The global threshold for poverty, I like this part because I'm a mathematician. The global threshold for poverty is $3 a day. Yeah. Can we agree on that?
Yeah.
What is $3 a day in today's money? 4,500 naira. 800,000 naira a year amounts to about 67,000, let's call it 68,000 naira a month, which trickles down, percolates to, say, 2,500, 2,600 a day.
A day.
So you're already taxing a large chunk, about 50% of the national poor. And again, because our money is now has a lot less value, the man you look, the keke driver you see that you think is a poor man, actually does maybe 10, 15 million naira in a year. I know this because recently, you must have seen it on my socials, I went to do both for 3 months on part-time basis. And on the average, I do 30, 40,000 naira a day. 25, 30, 40,000, depending on how long I chose to work.
Right.
I am not enjoying, I was not having fun. Even having earned that money, I was not having fun. And now you want to further
What bracket did that push you into?
That put me into the 12 million naira bracket.
Okay.
So 12 million a year.
Yes.
12 million a year is, I think, around 18%.
Yeah.
So the regular people were looking at thinking that they're definitely going to be...
The man selling boutique in your junction
is going to be
he's
taxed.
probably going to be doing around 12 million a year, 13 million. When he takes away his cost, he'll have maybe 6 million. He's going to pay tax.
Okay, Zekeri, let me jump and ask.
No, hang on. I know you want to say something.
I know you want to say something, but let me also add this to it. That this keke driver is paying for his own electricity. He's also there's also the cost of petrol.
Just like you and I.
Yes, just like there are other costs as well. I mean,
Security.
That is the frustration.
Yeah.
I think I need to mention this. If you now factor in the fact like we were discussing, they say governance is leadership. I mean, governance is democracy is a social contract.
Yeah.
Contract means you do for me, I do for you. You scratch my back, I scratch your back.
Money for hand, back for
money. No, I don't know that part. but let's take it a little deeper. A social contract means that you do your part
mutually
and
beneficial.
I do my part. The government, when I say the government now, the heads of government, executive government, because they are the ones who benefit from this, they are just about 38 of them, or 39. The 36 state governors, the minister of the FCT, and the president. Those are the people who have executive power in this country. We can add the local government, but we know the local government is in the pocket of the governor. So let's assume that the governors will attend to the local government. These men can sit in a room. They are all men. There's no woman in their midst, so there will be no quarrel. I'm not attacking you in any way. Anyway.
That's fine. You can go ahead. I can take you on.
They can sit in a room and agree that 90% of what they have generated, they should have shown example with fuel subsidy.
Yeah.
90% of what is generated should go to the common man. If they had done that in the last 2 years, by now when you say we need even more money,
we would have been very
we will willingly pay.
Yeah.
Instead, they were importing shankers from Brazil. But this is what they spent.
Mr. Ajayi,
Some of them, no.
you had a response. You wanted to say something from
I
earlier.
think the first point I would like to make is that if you earn income, you must pay tax.
Must.
Right? That is the first statement, and we all have to agree on that. But the tax that you pay must be relative to the income that you earn. Right? And so you have this concept of what we call progressive taxation. The more you earn, the more tax you pay, right? That is what people always do everywhere in the world. Now, when you speak about people that earn below 800,000, 1 million, all those kind of people, currently they're not paying. Most of them are not paying.
Absolutely.
Okay? Now, what we're trying to do is to bring more people into the net. They have to pay tax commensurate with their income.
How are they not paying? Let's
well,
appreciate.
because, you know, the cost of chasing them is much more than the income you're going to get.
We are paying
I
So there's
disagree.
no strong,
I
there's no
disagree.
apparatus
The
in
misconception is that they don't pay, but they do pay.
They don't pay. We are paying in our own government. I know we govern.
They are paying to state parties. They're paying to,
but
it's
they
not
do pay.
going to
So
government.
why don't we discipline that structure? Why don't we make it more formal?
Because the tax administration in Nigeria is not strong enough, all right? And so because you don't
And
have...
you think this will make it better? Because I remember when I had that conversation, I also did say that if you've not been able to tighten the informal sector and that taxing, because even those who walk, they pay some form of tax. Where does it go to? The conductor pays some form of tax. The Uber driver, like it or not, they pay money.
There was a report that Agberos, quote and unquote, here in Lagos,
makes up to
are
billions.
Hundreds of billions. Hundreds of billions of money.
Right. So where does it go to? So that's my own. Now, if you're able to mop that, you've not been able to tighten that. How then will you now tighten this? So much so that even the politicians and the elites can be, because those are the ones that are very slippery.
I understand your frustration, but let's look at it this way. The tax authorities in Nigeria have limited resources. And when you have limited resources, you need to say to yourself, where should I focus on? You want to focus on the one that will give you high yield income. And that is what the tax administrations are doing. So that's why they're not chasing the Agberos, they're not chasing all those informal market. They will rather chase the formal market. But the whole idea of this tax reform is to give people the opportunity to come into the tax net with the opportunities and incentives that are provided. That is one. The second point I was going to make before is that I do understand and agree with you on the concept of social contract. But when it comes to tax, tax is not a quid pro quo. What that means is that it doesn't mean because government has not provided you with roads, government has not built you a hospital, you will not pay tax. It is an obligation for anybody that earns income, you must pay tax.
What's the government's obligation?
Hold on for a minute. That is your obligation. The aspect of the social contract, what that then means is that you then need to hold government accountable for the money they've collected from you.
And that's what we're not doing. We're not holding them accountable.
And that is where you come into election
governance.
Governance. If government does not perform, you vote them out. That is what you can do. Now you can talk to me, you can say to me, well, we don't know whether our votes can. But that's a different argument entirely. But when it comes to tax, if government needs to provide infrastructure, government needs money. Government, you know, when I started speaking, I spoke about the 24 trillion naira in deficit. Government expects to spend 58 trillion in 2026. How much money are we going to make? 34 trillion.
Mr. Ajayi.
Now, just one comment that we'll just make. Do you know So about 80% of that money, where is it going to? To pay debt and to pay salaries. 80% of the income that we earn, is we're using it to pay debt, to pay salaries. So we need to even...
Just a second, Zekeri.
Yeah.
Mr. Ajayi, I want to follow up with you on what you have just said regarding accountability now, which is where the citizens have fallen short when it comes to tax. It's an obligation, you say, and the next thing is to hold government accountable. You've just bridged taxation
I would
policies.
With that.
I'll let you go. You've just bridged governance, you've just bridged policies, you've just bridged grassroots politics, and you've just put the blame on the people, is what it seems. Let's talk about fuel subsidy. Was it our problem that we didn't see the dividends of the removal of fuel subsidy? Because if they claim that these monies were there and was being squandered, and now they've stopped it, we didn't really see that. Whose fault is it then? Ours as the citizens who didn't hold government accountable? And learning from that, don't you see the apprehension going into a new tax reform regime and how the people would not want to first put that money out without seeing something come back to them? Like he said, scratch my back.
First thing, removal of subsidy is the best thing that ever happened to this country.
Where's the money?
We'll talk about where's the money now. This is where,
go on, sir.
So the question is, the money has gone to, it's been distributed among the three tiers of government, right? The federal, the state, and the local. If you look at the money they're getting from FAC, since the subsidy was scrapped, it's gone way much higher than what they used to get. Then the question is, where are they spending the money? And this is where the citizens have the role to play. They are not holding their governments accountable.
But they can suspend a governor. If the federal...
when it comes to, the states earn their own money, the federal has their own money. Everybody needs to, if I sit in Lagos, I need to be holding Lagos accountable. Where's the money? The fact of the matter is that we're not playing our part as citizens in this country. There is no accountability.
There's a big problem.
We're not demanding. If you're not demanding, you will not get answers.
Zekeri's been itching to go.
There's a big problem with asking citizens to hold government accountable. The question is, what are the tools that you and I have to hold a government?
Even protest.
I am still building that point. But again, let me ask you, what are the tools of coercion that the government has to hold you accountable for not paying taxes? In the law, the gazetted law, the tax authorities have the power, if you refuse to pay your tax, to go into your bank account, access it, and take taxes directly there.
Not exactly.
You can say it in a nice way, but it effectively trickles down to the fact that your money can be taken from you if you refuse to self-declare. That is the language. I'm quoting the chairman of the tax arrangement. He said you can be held accountable. And then, they always talk about revenue problem, that the government needs money to do. First of all, we are not seeing what you are using the money to do, the one you have.
Yes.
They say he who is faithful in little, more will be given
unto them. There we go.
So we are not seeing that. And again, I have always argued that we do not have a revenue problem. What we have are people who have made up their mind that they will live here in an alternate reality, and then the people will live here in another kind of reality. I give you examples where we can raise revenue without blinking.
Yes.
The solid mineral deposit we have in our country,
and it's gone, and there are many parts of it that's
more
uncharted.
money than oil.
I mean, we have issues of illegal mining.
Illegal mining is mined by human beings.
But
the illegal miners have the infrastructure. That's what government does.
That's what I'm saying. That there are many parts of it that's uncharted.
The more you look, the less you see.
Yeah. So
I go on, please. Before I, the gas deposit we have. My state, Edo State, has the highest gas deposit in Nigeria.
Oh, you're an Edo man. No wonder.
I am.
Long enough.
Now, why are you not exploring gas? The money they are generating from custom and excise, this your papa, if you know how much comes from there.
If you know how much they tax the trucks that goes in and out.
The money that they got from recovery, from removal, which I support, of fuel subsidy. I am not an hater of tax or a hater of government. I've said it before.
The amount of, and even import duties have gone up as well.
Import duties have gone up substantially. I am not an hater of tax. I have said it before. I don't hate taxes. I have said it, and my analogy is simple. Taxation is citizens feeding the goose
that lays the golden egg. The problem with the Nigerian goose, I have always insisted,
It doesn't lay any eggs.
is that this goose, first of all, eats too much. And there's absolutely no eggs. It has not even laid normal eggs. Don't talk of golden eggs and citizens.
Listen, I want to talk about something here that may and help me, right? The final products, because when we look at goods and services, will it affect it in terms of industries, right? FMCGs, other industry services providers as well. What are we looking at in terms of consumers? Because it's bad enough you're going into my account and taking out money. What happens to where we're paying, and what would it look like for the inflation in the first quarter?
Can I quickly just address that so that we don't leave this
Yeah,
space?
I saw that you had plenty of redress.
Government can't just go, or tax authorities can't just go into your account and take money, right? They can ask the bank to, but there is a process to it, and that process demands that you'll be aware,
and
you can object. You can object to it and whatever.
But
you can't just go there and just distrain your money. That's not. It's not that totally correct. There's a process to it. The other issue that is related to that I also must address. People have been talking about government can sell your assets, without a court order, which is an issue that people have raised. Even in the old law, what the law distinguished between movable assets and immovable assets. Immovable asset would be like land. Movable asset would be like your document, your bond, your securities. Now, under the old law, they can sell those movable assets without a court order. But that doesn't make it right. What we just need to do is that government should not be able to do that. But they cannot sell, under the current law, they can sell movable assets, just the same thing as in the old law, but they cannot sell your immovable asset without a court order. But we need to change that. You should not be able to sell any asset whatsoever without a court order. So that's the thing I just wanted to point out, because some of the misrepresentation that has been going on. Now, manufacturing. One of the things that people will realize that has happened is with respect to how we treat VAT. When you buy stuff from manufacturers, you pay what is called an output VAT. Yeah. And they also incur their own VAT called input VAT. Now, in the past, manufacturers only had the ability to offset their input VAT against the output VAT. When you're a service provider, like New Central, or provide services, you don't have that ability. All the VAT that you incurred, right, you need to expense it. What that means is that you're only taking a recovery of 30% or 33%, which is the tax rate, and the tertiary education tax, but now you can take 100%, so which is great. So that reduces the cost, and it helps to manage your cash flow. So that is one good thing that they've done, with this new tax law, because everybody, irrespective of your nature of business, you can offset your input VAT against output VAT. The other thing they've done is that to try and address the impact of the new tax laws on low-income earners. So there have been VAT exemption on so many products that, the so-called poor consume, just to manage the impact.
This makes the prices of these commodities cheaper.
Yeah.
These selected commodities.
I don't know whether it will be cheaper. That's a different thing entirely.
VAT on beer.
Zekeri.
The second part of that question that you didn't answer, and that's the inflation, right?
Inflation.
Because if you're, this tax, personal income tax is happening 800,000 and above, 800,000 and below, purchasing power, cost of living crisis, all the ingredients for a bad report card, inflation, yes or no?
But inflation is coming down. Inflation is now 14%.
Okay, it's 15. It's 15.
Well, 14.4%. Whatever you call it, it's coming down from 30-something%.
You see this technicality.
No, wait.
My assessment is let's go to market.
No, that's why I said purchasing power. I put it there. Yes. I put purchasing power there and the cost of living crisis.
Ladies, gentlemen,
I paid more transport
Zekeri,
to come from Benin.
But that's the funniest thing in Nigeria. Look at this December period. What has happened to transport costs? It's gone up.
Yes.
Meanwhile, fuel price has gone down.
Okay.
So what's forgetting?
I wanted to ask something close to that. I wanted to ask regarding the governments or the authorities. What they say is that this is going to actually boost investment for small businesses. And that is what the main problem is when it comes to people fearing this new tax law. How will my business be affected? How will my income be taxed? I'm not exactly clear on this. Who is going to come and look for these tax, and how much could they, get from me unscrupulously? That's the main fear. So how exactly, if you'll explain to us, Mr. Ajayi, is this going to boost investment in small businesses? Is this going to help them buy fuel cheaper because they buy their own fuel, they pay for their own electricity? Is this going to help bring down the cost of transportation? Because, once transportation goes up, and that's the fear, that small income earners might raise prices if they feel touched by the system. Once anything happens on that level, everybody else on top starts to put prices on, or more price on whatever it is their service or their commodities are. So how exactly does this new reform help businesses, help investment in new businesses? Can
we accept this argument that it takes money to make money?
Absolutely.
Okay. So that's the first principle. Then the second thing is, look, although I know you did say that you don't believe that government has a revenue crisis, but I can tell you we have a revenue problem in Nigeria. We're not generating enough money that we should based on what we're spending. Now, you can talk about, I've said about 80% goes to personal costs and debt. Now, it really doesn't matter whether you borrow. What matters is what you use the debt, to do. Now, the whole idea is that the money that will be generated will be used to provide infrastructure. Infrastructure. That means roads have got to be repaired.
That will reduce transport costs.
Right. Will bring down the cost of transportation. Healthcare has to be provided because you need people that are healthy to be able to generate income. You need to provide education to build capacity. So that is what it's all about, infrastructure. Now,
but the main amenity that people use to make money hasn't been attended to, and we're talking about power.
Oh yeah. When I talk about infrastructure, it includes power, telecommunication.
Yeah, but that has been the bane of Nigeria's existence for over 4 decades. And if nobody's assured of that power cost coming down, you can imagine their apprehension in paying taxes.
I do understand, and I sympathize with a lot of people, because they're paying, especially people that are paying and they can't see anything. But the fact of the matter is that shouldn't stop you from paying taxes, right? We need to hold government accountable. Now, we can only trust that the money that we collect from this tax will be used for the purpose for which it is meant for. And this is where we have a role to play. We need to be advocates. We need to seek, demand transparency from government. Now, if government does the right thing and provide infrastructure, what that does is that it's going to unleash growth that we've never seen. We're talking about 4% growth in GDP.
It's preempted. We haven't seen it. It's just preempted.
We're going about 4% now, but
it's a hard pill to swallow, Mr. Ajayi.
It's based on statistics.
Mr. Ajayi, it's a hard pill to swallow when you push the responsibility back on the people without the government.
I just told you that the people that can change this country are just about 39 of them. If they can sit and agree that let's really change things. And then I also speak to the people. I like to also speak to the people, but I speak to the people from a position of lackluster interest in governance.
Let's not do this.
The numbers are quite straightforward. In the last presidential election, 93 million registered to vote. Only about 23 million vote. If you aggregate the votes of all of the presidential candidates, both the one you love and the one you hate to love, it ends to about 23 million. Nigerians must take a lot more responsibility in electing their leaders. And those who say their vote will not count, I will never vote again, there's what is called overwhelming majority. No leader can stand against an overwhelming majority in an election. This is the only thing I know how to preach. I don't know how to preach revolution. I preach voting and election. And then the government, who feel, especially those who boast publicly sometimes, that the next election is settled for them. An American president once said, if you make peaceful changes impossible, you make violent changes inevitable. We pray, because we are a country of 300 million people. There is no country in sub-Saharan Africa that can absorb a refugee crisis from Nigeria. We pray that they do not push the people to consider violent changes. If this government was honest, when I say this government, I mean both the executive arm of government and the legislature. We have electoral reform bill lying there, follow. But they rushed the tax bill through the process. Quickly. And then now the question comes, why are you so interested in my money, whereas you have not accounted for it? Why are you pushing accountability back to me as a citizen? Why are the governors and the local government chairmen and even the presidency living lavish? How am I sure
that they've been stealing oil money. They even steal from the dead. The present case in court by EFCC and the former AGF and to the General Federation is that some of the money that our ancestors sent back to us in the person of Sani Abacha refund, the money was looted by somebody. So we have left ancient looters. We are now dealing with modern looters. This is not me talking. This is what is before the court.
Look, I gotta say this, right, and put this here. In terms of electoral reforms, there's also a lot that still needs to be done as part of the reforms that we saw.
Electronic transmission of results is key.
So it's very key. But also, I remember last elections, during the general elections, presidential and governorship elections, Shongo Tedo specifically, I think it was one of the wards at the Shongo Tedo Primary School. They had how many wards, how many polling units there? There was no turnout of polling officers. I remember clearly as I was on election duties.
It's just that you were not part of the election.
And there were people who were there sending out tweets asking for. In fact, I remember one of the electoral one of the candidates then also was calling for that. So I think that there's a lot that needs to. As we're talking about Nigerians not turning up, and then I also believe there's a concerted effort by the institutions as well to discourage them. That's what I heard.
Zekeri, just a second. I'm so sorry, but we've run out of time. And I really want Mr. Ajayi to actually answer one thing. Businesses are not ready when it comes to the digital. Okay, digital. What do you call it?
Technology.
The technology that goes with this. How's that going to affect these businesses? Because they ought to already have these in their systems. What's going to happen now?
I think what the government wants to do is that we do recognize the fact that we need to make money. And for us to make money, we need to make money in a way that is efficient and less costly. You don't want to spend all the money that you make, right, on cost, right? And that is where technology is being deployed, right, to make it easier and make it cheaper, right? And what we're going to is a situation where it's going to be auto-assessment.
Okay.
What that means is that you don't even need to bother to file returns.
From source.
Government can use third-party resources and determine what your revenue, what your income is.
This does not include them having access.
No, not taking. It's based on the income. Yeah, that's the whole essence of technology, to make it cheaper. And so, we can then determine what your assessment is. Now, you have to file your returns through your employee. For suppliers, for income, for business people, all your invoices now are going to be registered.
Okay, good.
So the issue of whether you make this much income, it could not be debatable because the facts are there.
So do I have to mentally note that I must keep my receipts and invoices as well?
Because for big companies, you have to transmit. You have to generate electronic invoices. It's a must.
But for regular companies, small...
For regular businesses, because of the costs that are involved, they're exempt from now.
They're exempt.
But for big businesses, they need to transmit electronic invoices.
Thank God, my small kiosks where I sell sweets. I won't have to do very quick, Idris, you got 30 seconds.
Yes, I congratulate Nigerians. Happy New Year to all of us. It's a new year of, it's a come to Jesus New Year. If you have not been interested in politics before, you can see now that politics is interested in you. If you have not been interested in governance, governance is interested in you. If you've not been interested in election, you not voting in an election is you electing the leader you do not want. And we are going to be paying taxes. That is the new reality. You may not know now, but the end is coming home to roost.
Yeah.
Towards the end of the year, that's when they do aggregate and check. So I am begging us, take interest in politics, take interest in governance, take interest in election, call out your leaders, and those of us who call out, but don't come and start fighting us. I'm not your enemy. I have other things to do. I could be 1,000 other places apart from doing
this. As an Edo man, I trust you. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you for doing this. Also, Mr. Wale, it was always a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having us.
Very enlightening indeed.